Welcome to this week's xConnect Northwest, connecting you to the experts. I'm your host, Greg Mills, and today we're joined by Deborah Olson, a representative from the Pullman League of Women Voters. Deborah is going to help us unravel initiative measure number 1351, and it's a complicated one and maybe complicated in some sort of hidden ways to somebody who was just reading the measure. We'll find out more about that. It's about K-12 class size, if you haven't had a chance to look at it in your voter's pamphlet yet. Now, before we get going, I want to remind you that you at home can chime in at any time with your questions. All you have to do is connect with us on Twitter at NWPTV. You can use the hashtag xConnectNW. On Facebook, search Northwest Public Television, or by email, kwsutv@wsu.edu. Deb, thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you here. Really appreciate it. Well,
I'll do my best.
I know. That's all we can ask. I'll do the same.
Okay.
It's a fair deal. All right. The initiative itself, 1351, addressing class size, and we're going to talk about and take apart some of the strata and layers of sort of where this came from as we roll along throughout this conversation. But essentially what it's saying here, and I'm not going to read all of the numbers and letters and everything on here because it probably wouldn't help or hinder anybody, I don't think. But anyway, it's an act relating to lowering class sizes and increasing school staff to provide all students the opportunity for a quality education. It's amending some areas of a pre-existing measure, and it's creating new sections, and those new sections are talking about changing the class size to reflect what they believe is the best way, I would assume, to educate children.
Yeah.
And you're
teacher ratio.
Yeah,
yes.
that ratio, and it's a complicated question, isn't it?
Yes, it is, because there are other factors that are involved. It's not just this is the issue, vote for it or vote not for it. There's the McCleary decision, the 2012 McCleary Supreme Court decision, also has to come into play in this, because part of that is smaller classrooms, as well as all-day kindergarten and stuff. So that, at one point you have to go, okay, which takes priority? Right. And I don't know if that's been addressed or even thought of anywhere.
So to put this in perspective, and we can start diving into the McCleary decision, which was in 2012. 2012. And what happened there in the best way you can describe it?
Essentially, the Supreme Court said that the state of Washington, the legislature, is not meeting its constitutional obligation to educate the children of the state, K through 12. Only K through 12. It doesn't discuss higher education or technical schools or anything like that, or even early learning. It's K through 12.
Yeah.
And one of the, they have several provisions that the state has to address, and all-day kindergarten, smaller class sizes, the state paying for the transportation of students, which I believe is now mostly a local fiscal obligation, as well as paying for some maintenance supplies and stuff that is usually covered by maintenance operation levels at the local level. The problem is some school districts pass every levy that comes along and some don't. So there's a very unequal playing field. The goal of McCleary is to even out the playing field as far as what educational opportunities are given to our students.
Yeah. As I look at how 1351 relates to that, just from my reading through it, and correct me if you feel like it is not right about that, that it also is addressing class size and areas where poverty plays a key, and that's where the classrooms or the school districts or the school itself that have a more than 50% free and reduced lunch program, is that right, attendance?
They're considered the high poverty schools. They have priority over every other school when in the reduction of, the money will go to them first. Yeah. For reducing classroom sizes. And in
1351, if I'm right about that, they were reducing those class sizes in those schools that fit into that category.
Even more.
Even more than what would be called your typical or prototypical school, as I think they were referred to.
Usually by 2 students in the number, I think it's like
17 and 15, I believe, were the numbers.
Yeah, exactly, for K through 3,
through the young, and that's where a lot of the issue is being addressed, is it not?
Well, there's a lot of studies that say K through 3 education classroom size matters a lot. No one's actually done as many studies, I believe, in the older ages, although definitely in the sciences you need smaller classrooms.
And that's addressed in
Yes,
1351.
it
And it
is.
would also, as I recall, in McCleary as well, where they talked
Yes.
a little bit about science classes, labs, things of that
Yeah,
nature where you
lab
need
size,
more.
yeah.
So what happened is, if we even go back further in one more strata, we go back to 2009, and 2261 was the number of the, I believe was the number of the measure that originally sort of set this in motion.
Yes.
That the McCleary decision was addressing. We weren't living up to the numbers and it being a primary thing that the state is supposed to fund. In fact, we cut, as I recall, in 2008 through 2010, somewhere in there. Is that right?
I'm not exactly sure when. It was like, okay, yes, this passed, and the legislature couldn't fund it, so it was repealed. But that was only the last one in like a string of 6 measures. People of the state have been trying to get the legislature to pay for good student-teacher ratios for many years.
Yeah, and we've got a timetable that takes us to 2018. Isn't that's the number, right?
Yeah, the 2017-2019 is the biennium for 1351. 2018 is the McCleary decision. If it's not done then, the state is in contempt of the Supreme Court.
Do you know what happens at that point?
No.
Does anybody?
I don't know. I imagine there's some fine, but that's not exactly going to help funding education unless that fine is devoted to education funding. I really don't know.
So what I've seen since, I mean, it's only been a couple of years, but if you look at a graph that shows what the stair step needed to be as a per pupil fund.
Reduction, yeah,
and
funding,
through the year 2009 all the way to 2018, the original stair step, and Governor Gregoire had made some progress in a budget that she, on her way out, had proposed and put out. But if you look at the numbers of how far along we are and how much ground we have to make up, we're not close.
Oh, no, nowhere close. And that's what this summer's court action was involved, whether they should start fining the state already. One of the main proponents of on the McCleary decision, yes, took the state back to court. And they had all, I would not want to be a state legislator for any amount of money this year, because this is the make or break year on the McCleary decision.
Yeah, I suppose you have a chance to shine or not in a big way.
Yeah,
one way or the other.
Where that $2.7 billion is coming from, who knows?
Now, and one of the things that Seattle Times said about 1351 is that it adds another 2.5, and you're saying now it's 2.7 billion dollars on top of, and they say on top of that, and that's to the McCleary's keep up with where we're supposed to be now, right?
Yes.
Remember? If that helps people understand kind of how we're juggling these two things together.
Essentially you're talking about a total of $4.7 billion as now. I mean, it's gone up since earlier in the year. $1 billion, $4.7 billion by 2019.
Wow.
And you just go, I have no idea where the money's coming from.
And and that's one of the questions that had come in here too, is what do you see disappearing as far as public programs and things that we've funded in the meantime? Set measures in motion in the meantime since 2009, if you want to go back that far, 2012 if you only want to go back that far. And what are we going to drop to be able to make up the difference and live up to our obligations?
I read somewhere, I don't know where, that we would essentially have to eliminate most of the social programs in the state of Washington, including all funding for higher education, in order to pay for this.
Wow. Let's have a listen. I spoke with a principal at St. Aloysius Gonzaga Catholic School in Spokane over the weekend. Asked her about the effect of class size on teachers, students, and education. And if we've got a chance here, we'll have a chance to listen to what she had to say.
Good.
It comes down to partly the nature of teachers, honestly, where teachers are going to lose sleep and they're going to worry over every student that's in their classroom. And so there are only so many minutes in a day that a teacher can spend, not apart from the actual instruction time, but time that they are researching or looking for a new way to meet a student's needs, or consulting with colleagues, or trying to find resources, meeting with families, all of those things, as your class size goes up, all of those things take up more minutes than are in the day for a teacher. So I think that's a key part of it, that it goes beyond just the instructional minutes of the day. The reality, though, for both public and private, is that there has to be enough income in that classroom. There has to be enough money generated in that classroom to pay the bills. So there is a very practical tipping point that doesn't have to do with teaching and learning. That's more about the business end of operating education, operating a school.
What she was talking about in general, now she's not tied to the state mandate,
No.
obviously, which in many ways I thought sort of separated her, because I wanted her to talk to me about just what class size meant to teachers, and she's talking about those ratios.
Yeah.
And she has to deal with the budget, as she mentioned, and the business end of running things, and that's really what we're talking about with 1351 and the MCCLEARY
Which is
decision here.
one of the reasons that the 1351 is not just extra teachers. They are across the board increases in staff, administrative, more librarians,
Yeah.
just across the board staff increases. These numbers are actually put in the voter pamphlet that the state produced, which is,
Okay.
so if you're really interested, that's where the numbers are.
And that's where my next question is. As we're getting close to wrapping things up here. How do we get more information from you? And their voter pamphlet should come in the mail. But
The
if people need to know how to get signed up and where to
Yes.
get the information, how do they do that?
I have to admit that the papers, the Community Update, Paul Sturm did a great article in there. The newspapers have had excellent editorials as well as articles on 1351 and what it means.
Okay.
As far as, the voter pamphlet always is a good, and you can skip right to the end and read the pro and con arguments if you
Sure.
want. As the league, we present this information to the public in forums. We have people come and speak to each side, and you can ask questions at the forums.
And they can find that on your website, what your events
Yes,
are?
at lwvpullman.org, and also in
Thank
the
you.
paper. There's a blurb on the editorial page. They've been listing all the forums where the candidates have been,
Well, great.
and the issues are being discussed.
And I'm hoping that they will take advantage of that. Thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
being here. Thanks to Deborah Olson for joining us today. Thank you at home for helping us out. And we hope you enjoyed today's show. Remember, you can stay connected with us all week. Tweet us, use Facebook, add us to your Google Plus, or you can email us at kwsutv@wsu.edu. Send us your show ideas. We would love to hear from you. If you missed any part of today's show, don't worry. It'll be available online at nwptv.org. I'm your host, Greg Mills. Thanks for joining us today.